Okay, so the next thing I'd like you guys to do is to look at the different averages in a little bit more detail. So what we've created so far is an overall average of height and arm span across all of the students. What I'd like to try next is to create averages per course, and I'd like you to do that. So you need to sort of delineate and show your own working in Excel a little bit so that later on you can remember what you've done. So I always like to give names to cells and just remind myself what I've done there. So this, for example, here is the overall average. Okay, so now I know that these two numbers here refer to the overall average of these two columns. And what I'd like you to do is to get me the averages for the students on the different courses. So we've got Unman, we've got Canine, we've got Equine, we've got Vet Nursing, we've got Wildlife, and we've got Zoo Management. You might have noticed how Excel actually does predictive text as well, which is quite useful. And so yeah, I'll leave you with that task. So you need to give me the averages for these different groups, and I'm going to ask you a question, then we're going to do one more graph, and then we are on to looking at some stuff to do with the ratio between these two measurements after that. Okay, so hopefully your table looks just like this one, and what you would have done in order to get to these values is to select different ranges for the different courses. Okay, so Unman students are at the top because we sorted this alphabetically, so you would have had to type equals average, open bracket, and then highlight all of the cells for students within Unman. And then for Canine, you would have again equals average, and then highlight all of the cells for students who said that they belong to the Canine course, and so on. And then you could have done exactly the same again for arm span by typing equals average and highlighting the different ranges, or as a shortcut, and hopefully some of you would have done that, you could have, once you've finished inputting all of the averages for height, you could have just highlighted them, drag them across, and then it would have automatically created the averages for the ranges one to the right, like here. Okay, so next thing, I want to create a more detailed chart that now breaks down the heights and arm spans into the different courses. So as before, we highlight the range that we want to include. We go to Insert up here, and then we go into the different charts. In this case, again, we want to use a normal column chart. Okay, so this is the chart you get. And as I said before, Excel is quite clever. It usually sort of predicts what you want to do. So in this case, it's correctly predicted that you want to use the different names for the courses on your x-axis to show which different groups you want to compare between. And this is usually how we organize graphs as well, is that on the x-axis, this is the horizontal one, we have our independent variables, so in this case the different courses, and then on the y-axis, the vertical one, we have the measurements that we were interested in. So in this case, this is the number of centimeters, which are the average for height and arm span in this case. Okay, so the height of each of these bars and where it hits this y-axis is the average for that measurement in that group. The only thing that Excel hasn't done correctly is at the moment it's just called these two measurements, Series 1 and Series 2, because we didn't tell it that it's actually height and arm span that we want to, that we have included there. But we can change that. We can tell Excel that exact information. So click anywhere on the chart, anywhere in the sort of free area at the top here, right click, go to Select Data, and then again, as you've seen before, this has all the information about what is in the actual graph. The axis labels on the horizontal are the different courses, that's correct. The measurements within each of the series are these ones here, again, that's correct. The only thing that's incorrect is the name of these series. In order to change that, we go to Edit, and like I said, if you look at this, it highlights what's included, and that's correct. So those are the measurements which are in there, but we want to name the series. Now you can do two things. You can actually just type height in here, and that will change the name of the series to height. However, you can also just select the cell that you've used as your column header, because that says the same thing, and that means that now Excel has the information of the content of the cell as well as the location of where that content is stored. In order to do that, you need to click on this little arrow here, and then just highlight the cell that says height. Click on this one here and click OK. And now Excel has changed the name of the series to height. We're going to do the same thing for the arm span. So again, edit, click on this one, store it in there, click OK. Now what this means is that if we change anything within the cells that we've used for the chart, then it will change the chart. Because Excel now has not just the value that's within these cells, it also has the formulae. So what cells does it refer to? It has the location of where that information is. And if we change whatever is the content of the cells in that location, it will change the chart. So let me show you what I mean. If I, for example, change the name of this column from height to coffee, because I would like a coffee right now, then it will change that within the chart as well. So now this series is called coffee instead of height. Obviously that's incorrect, so we'll change that back. And the same goes for the values. So let's say one of the students comes to me after a session, they say, I've measured myself again, actually this measurement was wrong. I'm not 166 centimeters tall, I'm 180 centimeters tall. Okay, I'll change it in here, and what happens is it will change the overall average. I don't know if you've seen that. Okay, but if I change this measurement, the average changes from 173.04 to, now it's 180 again, 173.13. That's a very minor change, very subtle change, but it has a cascading effect, okay, because in this I've calculated the average of a specific range. Whatever changes within that range is represented in this measurement. And then I've used that measurement, I've also created an average down here of the same thing, of just the zoo management students. This student here is within the zoo management course. So changing their height changes this average down here as well. Okay, and it also changes the chart. So watch the chart when I change the measurement. It changes. And that's the beauty of Excel. So you can actually sort of play around with the data a little bit and see what happens. And if you store a formula in your cells, if you use these functions in order to get information from Excel, you're really flexible later on as to what you can do with that data. Okay, so that's everything for the first part of this workshop. In the next part, I want to do a couple more really simple calculations, and then there's, as always, also an extended task for anyone who's finished before the workshop time is up.